Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Friday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. What's the deal with Rui Hachimura? We'll talk about it next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers your first listen of every day. All of them, every single day. You make it your first listen. Locked On Lakers.
But only Monday through Friday.
Well, except when we have special shows on the weekend,
Sure.
Andy. And some people are just going there and making it their first listen every day on principle, even if they have to listen to the same show twice, which we appreciate. Partially they do it, Andy, because it's always free and it's never behind a paywall. It costs you nothing to make it your first listen of every day. And you can always go to Locked On Lakers on YouTube and make it your first thing you watch in the morning with 22,000 other subscribers. Everyone getting ready for tonight's game in San Antonio, a rare away doubleheader with a team that's like a baseball series all of a sudden. So we'll talk about that. We're going to get into some questions about Rui Hachimura and why it just hasn't worked yet. I think the way that everybody hoped in the off season,
or my contention, it has been working. It just hasn't been allowed to work well as it could.
That can be part of it. Why? Maybe it is, but we'll get to that. It may not be Rui. It might be outside forces. I have an interesting question about pockets and all that, but trust me. First of all, we're going to start with tonight's game because I don't think, Andy, there was a game that the Lakers have played this year that people found more annoying than the one on Wednesday where the Lakers up by 18 against San Antonio to begin the fourth quarter, won by 3 and needed some gifts from a team that has now lost 18 in a row to make sure they didn't blow that game. I think that was the most annoying game of the year for the Lakers, especially when you consider that they won.
Yeah, the inexplicable factor felt pretty off the charts for a lot of Laker fans. Reminder, the game tonight in San Antonio, the second end of this away consecutive looks at the Spurs. Hopefully LeBron plays this time, and we get another fun AD Wemby showdown. That was not something anybody could complain about from this game. You can catch every Lakers game on the hometown broadcast with Sirius XM on the SXM app. Search Lakers. It'd be one thing if the Lakers had played, for whatever reason, badly against the Spurs. Like it had been very clear from the beginning that they walked into this thinking it was a cakewalk, clearly underestimated San Antonio, or it was one of those things where you realize, like, oh my God, this team is bad, but there are very obvious reasons why they're an awful matchup for the Lakers, in the same way that during the Kobe Powell era, for whatever reason, the Charlotte Bobcats that one season, I believe, won 9 games, they would always play the Lakers really well.
Or just, your team has a bad game, the other team has a rare hot night, whatever it is, there are reasons. But I think what you're getting at is the Lakers didn't do that. They controlled the game very efficiently. They did it, did they blow San Antonio out of the water, get up by 40 at halftime in the game? No, they didn't. But in the NBA, even against lousy teams like San Antonio, if you are up by 12, they were up by 13 at halftime. If you're up by 18 going to the fourth quarter, you are controlling the game, no question. First of all, I want to let people know that today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use the code in all lowercase LockedOnNBA, LockedOnNBA again for a first deposit match up to $100. But they didn't do that, and and even more than that, it's like, okay, you let your foot off the gas a little bit. An 18-point lead shrinks down to 13 with 3 or 4 minutes left. That's not ideal, but you're still up by double digits with it. Okay, your 13-point lead, Andy, shrinks down to 10 with 2 minutes left. 2 minutes to go. You are up by 10. You are a team that has championship aspirations. And what was incredibly frustrating about it was not that I think by that point the Lakers were paying attention, that they couldn't put themselves back in a place where the execution improved, where the decision making improved, and they could get back to that place. That to me was incredibly frustrating because, like, I am probably more tolerant of off nights, the ebbs and flows of the regular season and all that than a lot of fans probably wish I was. But this was just ridiculous.
Well, in certain respects, I mean, maybe it's frustrating, but it shouldn't be surprising because we've talked about this recently. The Lakers are definitely playing better of late. Like, they got off to a bit of a difficult start and they didn't have their entire roster. They've gone through some periods with skeleton crews, but ever since they've gotten everyone more or less back and they've really been able to lean into this defensive identity and this defensive look, they've been a much better team. We may get into this, but over the last 10 games, I think a bit under the radar, they've turned into a team that actually can shoot 3-pointers.
Yeah.
They've actually been fairly good, but they are not yet a team that is good enough to just pull the switch. I mean, to just flip the switch. If you believe flipping the switch is actually a thing and something teams can do. So the idea that, okay, 2 minutes left, we are all of a sudden down 10, or, the lead's down to 10, we should be able to just turn this thing on and put San Antonio away. The Lakers have actually not demonstrated an ability to be that proficient yet.
Oh, God,
they can just do this stuff at will, particularly without LeBron there to help organize everything. No. So in that particular specific sense, whether you think it's frustrating or not, it probably shouldn't be surprising.
I guess, but I mean, I think they ought to be able to. Again, take shots, make shots, miss shots, whatever happens. Slow on rotations, dribble the ball to the wrong spot on the floor where Russell, his really bad turnover was in part due just dribbling to the wrong spot on the floor into a double team and picking up his dribble. Like, these are avoidable mistakes. Anthony Davis, who was phenomenal in this game, but still took a bad shot, quick in the shot clock, early, a mid-range jumper with nobody underneath for the decision making. You would expect to be better from, even if the results aren't for a team playing again without LeBron. I understand that. And that was relevant for a lot of the rotation choices that we saw late in the game and stuff. I want to talk about in the next segment, like what to look for tonight in response to what we saw on Wednesday. But and this is what I'm looking for. Okay, I assume I'm assuming LeBron is going to play Friday night. But I mean, as we're taping, I don't know. And he's going to be listed as questionable for the rest of the season, every game, to give them the flexibility to sit him if they need to. Do they learn from the Wednesday's game? If they had come out flat and not played hard and taken the game for granted and found themselves in a dogfight that way, would they learn their lesson and come out blazing on Friday to put the game away? Well, the question here was, take your foot off the gas, lose focus, not take it, whatever it was, in terms of your execution, can you fix it? Do you fix it in this game? Do you repeat the same mistake twice? That's what I'm looking for in this one. And then we'll talk about the shooting, and let's talk about this LeBron question too, because when you inject LeBron back into it, it's hard to measure these things. So we'll get to all of it next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by Dave, and finances can be really overwhelming for everybody. Like, lately, I've had some unexpected dental work that has come up that has needed to get taken care of at this moment, combined with a few unexpected household expenses. And then all of a sudden it's like, how do you handle this? And that's why you need Dave. Dave can make managing your money So much easier with an interest-free, advanced, fee-free goal tracking and easy ways to find a side hustle to make more money. And Dave is the banking app that's leveling the financial playing field. When you download Dave, you can get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less. There's no credit check, no late fees. Advance the money you need with no interest. Settle up later. You can even build credit when you settle up on time. Millions of people have already downloaded Dave to make their finances easier. Download Dave today at dave.com/lockedonnba. That's dave.com/lockedonnba. You can get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less. No credit check, no late fees. Download the Dave app now or go to dave.com/lockedonnba. For terms and conditions, go to dave.com/legal. Eligibility, criteria, and instant transfer fees apply. Banking services provided by Evolve, member FDIC.
Locked On Lakers also brought to you by Logix. On this show, we get a lot of in-depth analysis and some hot takes, right? Well, let me give you my hottest take of the day. The best lineup in LA and the surrounding areas right now is the lineup of auto loans at Logix. They start off at the top with my favorites, the proven and dependable new and used vehicle loans. You can count on these guys to give you low rates and save you big time bucks. Next up, they've got an exciting new rookie sensation in their electric vehicle loans with super low rates and flexible payment terms. Rounding out their lineup, they've got their auto financing loans and lease buyout loans. And with these guys, you could lower your monthly payments and get on the road to owning your car faster. Look, I know it's a hot take, but seriously, no one can beat the lineup at Logix. So visit your local Logix branch right here in LA and the surrounding areas and let one of their amazing team members help you, or just apply online in minutes at logixbanking.com/car. That's LOGIX banking.com/car. Okay, we'll get to the game tonight here in a second if we need to, or we'll get in the shooting. And certainly I want to unpack this Rui thing. But, obviously the last couple games, especially this one, the Dallas game, a lot of frustration with Darvin. The San Antonio game, frustration with Darvin. I think it's fair to say a lot of Lakers fans, even with the Western Conference Finals run, not fully buying in to the magic of Darvin Ham. Is that a fair assessment? Is that too much hot takery? Or are we?
No, that is absolutely a fair statement. Whether you think the people involved are actually being fair or not, as an assessment, right, you are 100% describing things
right.
accurately.
And I am 100% aware that people think I am probably too easy on Darvin, too easy on coaches generally, too deferential to what they're doing, and maybe harder on players. I put out a question. I bought myself a little gift. It's the holiday season, treat yourself kind of thing. Bought myself a little jacket that I saw, a brand that I liked. It was on sale. And after I ordered it, I noticed, and this in and of itself should be a crime, it had no pockets, Andy, on the side, like where your hands would go. It was like basically like a shirt with a zipper. But
I was going to say that's a shirt you're describing.
Yes, and it should come with a freaking warning label on the website. And so I put out on Twitter, because I was so mad, should it be legal to make a jacket that doesn't have pockets for your hands, like side pockets? And most of America agrees that you should be sent straight to prison for that sort of thing. A couple people, though, made the joke that it's great that people haven't soured on pockets generally because they're mad at Darvin. Like they're taking out their frustration with Darvin on the idea of just pockets generally. Because
Darvin would ruin the pocket industry.
Yes, because
big pocket would fold
because he's got his hands in them too freaking much. And I ask this question sincerely because so much of how we talk about athletes and talk about coaches and stuff can often be based on vibes. And I am not in 1 second suggesting that all the frustration with Darvin is based just around what I'm about to talk about, as opposed to tactical choices. But I'm curious, how much do you think the attitude and frustration and perception of Darvin would be different if he were a much fierier sideline presence? If he was up and down, if he has, he was up and yelling, whatever. A lot of what people don't like and the memes that go around are him just standing really still with his hands in his pockets, never calls timeout, doesn't seem to move sometimes very much. I'm wondering how much the demeanor also annoys people because they want to see more fire out of a coach. There's some of the same criticisms of Anthony Davis. You don't see enough fire. You don't see enough. I'm wondering how much of that would be different.
I mean, look, it's impossible to prove a negative or counterfactual. I'm inclined to say that if Darvin was doing the exact same stuff, but had a super fiery, I don't know, maybe Ime Udoka type temper, because, we saw he managed to get ejected in the recent Lakers-Rockets game.
Talking LeBron.
Yeah, well, apparently this is what Ime Udoka, he apparently talks a lot as a coach. And, as a player, Ime Udoka was known as a very scrappy, you don't necessarily want to mess with him role player, which is in part how he managed to stay in the league as a relatively unskilled NBA player. It was all basically just defense and attitude. I am inclined to say that if Darvin was making the exact same moves, but that was in his temperament, the reaction would be just calm down and make better decisions. I honestly don't think one has anything to do with the other. They don't like the decisions, therefore they're focusing on his pockets.
No, but it is not like there have been athletes throughout time that I feel like,
right,
whether it's Powell, whether it's, I remember we used to talk about this like back in the day with like JD Drew when he played for the Dodgers, like take a bat to the Gatorade,
right? But I think
fans,
I think fans, generally speaking, care more about the passion factor from their players than their coaches. As long as coaches can keep their teams motivated, they care about them making the right decisions.
I think you're probably right. I do think the sort of aesthetics of it and the presentation might influence a little bit more than you do. But I was just curious because
when you're making the wrong decision,
it just got me thinking about it, because like so much of the criticism ends up like being like the joke and the memes and the anger is move your hands. Do something. It got me thinking. I wanted to ask you your opinion about it. Let's talk about Ruy.
I mean, as far as do you want to examine the lineup thing at all, or is it just that particular question?
Well, I mean, we talked to it was which lineup thing.
The lineup, I guess, at the end of the Spurs win.
Well, I mean, like we talked about it on Thursday's show. Like, I think, people were mad that Reeves and Russell were out on the floor together. I think that had everything to do with LeBron's absence.
Yes, I agree.
You needed a second ball handler. You can't, and Reeves, as much as well as he has been playing lately, and I think he's pretty much turned it around and is more or less playing to the level that I think people would want him to be. He is not yet at a place where like constant ball pressure late in games and stuff like that. He, struggled a little bit with the handle, struggled a little bit with that stuff. You want a second guy on the floor who can do it. And if you put Reddish on the floor, if you put somebody else out there and leave Reeves like as the only guy, I think that has everything to do with LeBron not being on the floor. The question of Vanderbilt could be a pitch count thing. But one guy who wasn't on the floor also too was Ruy. I mean, there are options for Darvin, and you've made the point a few times that Ruy doesn't seem to be as high on the option tree as I think you would like. And, I think it's fair to say, would you agree too, that this year it is not yet panned out the way the Lakers would have wanted with Ruy for whatever reason, injury. He's been hurt in a couple different ways, and it's the mask and lineup stuff and whatever. But he is, I think, yet to produce at $17 million or whatever.
No, well, it depends on how you look at it. I mean, he has not produced in terms of counting stats the way you would look for at Rui's salary. Mm-hmm. And I agree, there is an element of he's missed a lot of games. It's been hard for him to get into a rhythm. He's admitted it has been difficult for him to play in this mask. Sometimes it gets sweaty and it moves around and it's hard for him to actually see. And it's been difficult for him this process, I don't know how long he's going to have to wear the thing, but it's become pretty clear he cannot wait to ditch it. Like, he's really sick of it.
He hates it. He hates it.
That being said, though, and we can talk about this after the break, I think the results for Ruy in a small sample size have actually been better than whatever you want to say about the counting stats. And if there is an element of Darvin's lineup decisions that has been frustrating for me, and I have very often found difficult to decipher, it has actually been his use of Ruy. So let's talk about that coming up next. Locked On Lakers is brought to you by Prize Picks, the largest independently owned daily fantasy sports platform in North America. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you just pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in up to 25 times your money. And with basketball season now in full swing, you can pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League, created specifically for projections that include 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. For example, take LeBron and Travis Kelce at 10.5 combo of 3-pointers made and receptions. With the Prize Picks reboot policy, your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured for NFL and NBA games. If you have a player who exits in the first half, doesn't return in the second, that player gets rebooted. Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with injury insurance. So go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA, lowercase, all lowercase, and use that code LockedOnNBA, again, all lowercase, for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy.
All right, so I know, going back to last year, you've been a proponent of the Ruy ought to be playing more thing. And this year, his minutes, for a lot of reasons, again, he's only played in
15 games,
15 of their 25. So he's missed a lot of time. And so there are mitigating circumstances. You mentioned the mask and other things. But I think broadly, it's fair to say, like, everybody expected him to kind of ascend into, partially just because they're paying him more, but ascend into this 30-minute-ish a night role that doesn't appear that he's going to do.
No.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know, because like I said, if you're disappointed with the counting numbers, a lot of that just has to do with playing 23 minutes a game, because he's averaging 11 points per game, 49% from the field, certainly more than acceptable, 41% from 3. The only unacceptable part about that is, frankly, Ruy doesn't take enough of them. He ought to be more, especially for a team that needs more volume. He is averaging almost 77% from the line, a little under 4 rebounds per game. Maybe want that up a tick, but I can't imagine that's what's keeping him from playing. But then if you start looking at his advanced numbers, to whatever degree those matter to you on the season, of anybody who's played 15 games, because that's the amount he has, he's got a net rating of plus 4.7 behind just Jared Vanderbilt, which, by the way, speaks to Vando's importance, albeit in a small sample size. The advanced numbers lurve that.
Oh, he's leading the team in for whatever it's worth in net rating.
Yeah, they want to have all of Vanderbilt's babies, the advanced numbers. And then LeBron, Rui's behind, no shock. And then after Ruy, AD. If you look at the last 10 games where the Lakers have been playing better, Rui's only played in 5 of them, but the Lakers have really started rounding into a form that's got people excited. He is behind Reddish, Vando, LeBron, AD, but on the positive side. Then you start looking at different lineup combinations. Anthony Davis, Austin Reeves, Ruy in 130 minutes, plus 9.7. LeBron, Austin Reeves, Ruy, 100 minutes, plus 20.2. LeBron, AD, and Ruy. Now, this is the smallest sample size, just 57 minutes. They're just plus 2.5. So even the most devil's advocate argument for Rui's PT, like that the returns have been relatively diminished with LeBron and AD, the team's 2 best players, it's like, okay, I would probably risk a larger sample size to see what happens. But even then, it's like, okay, well, he's a great connector for those moments when only one of them is on the floor.
Right. That's always interesting to me. Is like, I think, and this is part of your reasoning for wanting him to come off the bench to begin with, was that he functions better and you can utilize him more if he's not on the floor with LeBron and AD at the same time. And I do think the numbers bear that out.
Yeah. And I think the eye test bears it out. And, when we talk about lineups and, configurations, things like that, this has been my most, I think, consistent criticism, or just frankly lack of understanding with Darvin and lineups, like as opposed to like a specific lineup choice in a game, or like pick a playoff series when against Memphis. I don't think he was quick enough to start playing Wenyen Gabriel when they needed more rebounding, or when he opened the Denver series small, which was just inexplicable insanity.
Right. It's very easy in the moment of a game, especially when things aren't going the way that you would want them to say, do this. And then in your mind, of course, the thing I'm suggesting, person on the couch, would work far more effectively than what they're doing. I mean, but this isn't that. This is a trend line kind of thing.
Right. And and I mean, people have been listening to the show for the last few years, and thank you.
The everydayers.
Yeah, the everydayers. And I appreciate it. I mean, this is something that I was saying I wanted more from Rui last year pre-playoffs, when a lot of people thought he was disappointing. My stance was always, no, I think he should be playing more. And I don't get any sense that this is a personal thing between Darvin and Rui. Like, I don't think Darvin's really wired like that anyway, to play guys less because of a personal thing. I know some people think they might play someone else more because of Darvin's affinity, but I've never gotten a sense that he plays anybody less because of something like that. I just, for whatever reason, it doesn't seem like he has fully bought into Rui. And I honestly just don't understand why.
This is one of the theories that I work under. Vanderbilt is another example of this. With his metrics, there are going to be a lot of people who look at it and say, good God, get him on the floor more. And what I've always contended, particularly with role players, is the trick with them is, how do you maximize what they're doing and put them in the situations where they're going to be most effective and get the most value, and then draw the line. Because when you do that effectively as a coach, you're going to have a situation where the guy you're putting on the floor looks like he should be playing way more than he is. Sometimes they should be. Other times you would actually get less out of that player. You get a diminishing return if you keep them on the floor longer. Again, Vanderbilt, some of this I think is pitch count. He's still hasn't, I don't think, completed what can be considered a full training camp and preseason's worth of activity.
He also hasn't really completed a game where it doesn't seem like he isn't limping at some point.
Right. He's hurt a lot. I mean, he's not completely healthy. And, I think Rui is probably somewhat limited too, in part, at the very least, he can't see. Like, there was that lob in the Dallas game, I think it was, where Reeves threw him a very normal alley-oop and Rui just missed it because I think he couldn't see the ball. And so I think that influences it too. But I wonder if that idea is part of it, that Darvin isn't willing to push Rui past the peak of his effectiveness. I'm not sure that's the right thing to do. You could take.
I definitely think it's the wrong thing to do.
Right. You could take a few minutes away from Taurean Prince. You could try to use an extra minute and a half of Rui to take a minute and a half away from AD if you can, to take a minute and a half away from LeBron if you can, because, like you say, he plays so well with both of those guys. It's one of those things where I go back and forth in my head on, like, is this something the Lakers need to solve? Is this a problem that needs solving, or is it a problem of perception that the royal we assume that he's supposed to be doing more, getting more, and whatever, because now he's been paid? And that is an us problem. That's not a Lakers problem. It's up to the Lakers to determine whether or not they feel they're getting the value out of Hachimura that they expect. And if it's not tied in their minds to 29 minutes a game versus 23, then that's fine. And if the performance is okay, then that's fine too. And it's, they've got a lot of wings now. That has an influence of it. Cam Reddish's ascendance has a lot to do with it. That moves guys up and down the lineup and takes minutes away that probably would have otherwise been available for Ruy, just in terms of the lineup combinations that are available. But I'm not trying to waffle on the question. I don't have a great answer for it, but I do think it's one of I think the most interesting dynamics that you get with supporting casts is maximizing the lineup combinations, maximizing their ability, hiding their weaknesses, because he does have certain matchup deficiencies, especially on defense. And I wonder if that's in play here. And then if Darvin is just a little too sensitive to those potential shortcomings and isn't willing enough to let Ruy push through them. I don't know. That could be it too.
That is the indication that I get, is just for whatever reason, there has not been a full buy-in towards Ruy. I don't think he's, playing him in spite of his desires or anything like that. Like, I don't think Darvin, if he had his way, would take Ruy out of the rotation. Although there was that one time last year where Ruy, because LeBron was coming off the bench, for some reason that meant Ruy can't play. And I think Darvin came to realize, that was dumb. Yeah. that was overthinking.
We're all human.
But
he took his hands out of his pockets and pointed to Ruy and said, "Get back in the game."
No, he took his hands out of his pockets and pointed at himself, and he said, "My bad,
my bad."
But I don't. This has been something that I have not understood since basically the moment Ruy arrived. And again, if you look at just his counting stats, there's nothing that would indicate the why. There's nothing that you point at and say, okay, this is it. Like, there just isn't anything that jumps out.
And it may indicate that he's playing the exact right amount, or more or less. Not to the minute, but more or less is being deployed exactly how he should be. Or it could be an indication that he should play. To some degree, it's like how much of a role player is he? Is he something better? Like D'Angelo Russell is something more than a role player. Austin Reeves, clearly something more than just kind of a role player. Jared Vanderbilt is a role player. It's a really good role, and he's really good at it. Cam Reddish is developing into a role player, and the kind of role player that actually you can support with decent amount of minutes on the floor. I think Darvin has Ruy still in that role player category, and it would be interesting to see if there's more there. I don't know how you carve up the minutes, and we can talk about it on another show, but it was just something that I was thinking about this afternoon, and I wanted to bring it up because I know you are probably as strong of an advocate for Ruy as is working in the LA Lakers media ecosystem.
Hashtag free Ruy.
We didn't get to the shooting, but just be advised it's been much better. So be happy about that.
Last 10 games, they've averaged 40%.
We will be back after tonight's game, hopefully to talk about a much less annoying Lakers victory. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out, see the show, talk to over 22,000 subscribers, leave questions for us, leave comments. We love to use them on the show. We will see everybody after the game.